Hello, welcome to the Future Dreamers podcast. This is episode 1 of interviews, and I'm so excited to have Carolina with us today. We did an Instagram live last week to kind of get ready for this podcast, and I'm just so grateful that Carolina, you said yes to joining and kind of taking a chance on me as I get this podcast launched. It's been something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and as I suspected, it is, kind of taking the leap and betting on myself that this is something I could do. It's already like you sitting here in front of me is proof that this is going to be a vehicle to have so many fascinating conversations with really smart, beautiful future thinkers. And you are an astrologer that I connected with over Instagram. You have the account astrology.cas. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
I just loved what you've been sharing. You have, this Pisces season, I've been reading your posts about just like how to conceptualize of the energy of like this particular zodiac. And so we're going to have a really fun discussion about how to use astrology for healing. So we'll get into all of that in a second. But to start out with, I wanted to just ask you a little bit about who is the person behind astrology.cas? Who is Carolina? How did you find astrology? Your background, and we'll get into all those details. So thank you again for joining, and tell us about yourself and your astrology journey.
Hi, Kathryn, and I'm so excited to talk to you again. And thank you for having me on the first episode of your podcast. It's just so exciting to start this with you. And thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm really grateful that we connected through Instagram. And yeah, I just love it. So thank you very much.
Great.
Yeah, so who is the person behind astrology.cas? That's a good question. So maybe I should start by saying that I'm a Scorpio sun for me because it brings me to this point now where I am putting myself out there and showing myself and trying to shine my light, which is extremely challenging for a Scorpio sun or rising or moon.
Yeah, I know that.
But yeah, so I feel like with your support and your encouragement, this is kind of possible. So I've got you to thank you for that.
Oh, don't mention it. We're both Scorpions, so
Yeah.
we have a very parallel journey where we're trying to work through.
Yeah, we do. So I come from Venezuela originally, but I have lived in the UK for many years. Perhaps, do you know, I was thinking the other day, it's coming to my Saturn return in the UK. So I came, yeah, so
Wow.
next year it will be 30 years that I've been in the UK. So I thought, oh, that's a Saturn return. So that's
That is so
exciting.
fun.
Yeah, I wonder what that's going to bring. But yeah,
Well,
so
maybe it won't be as bad as your regular. I mean, my Saturn return was a shit show. So hopefully this is more of just a reflection of everything you've accomplished and not like you don't need to learn all the stuff you probably learned when you were 28 or 29.
oh yeah. So yeah, that is exciting. I mean, I'm not like that's not my personal Saturn return, but it's like my Saturn return being in the UK. So but it's still exciting, and I'm still really, looking forward to seeing what it brings.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I started learning astrology here in England. I mentioned when we met on our Instagram live that I've always liked planets since I was a little girl. I used to read about planets and, you know, their composition and, whereabouts they were in the solar system and, all those things. But it wasn't until I came to the UK and I met a friend of mine who was very much into astrology back then. She used to tell me all about transits and planets and signs, and she used to say, "Oh, you should read this, and this is going up in the sky now, and here's a book that you should read." And that was it. I got hooked. She gave me a book called Astrology for Self-Discovery. And I read it and I thought, this is fascinating. I want to know more. And
That's
yeah.
worth noting. I think that really happens. Like we just like really can get hooked by the mystical. So it's cool to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, and also the name of the book, Astrology for Self-Discovery, that is such a deep topic.
Yeah.
Probably something that I wasn't looking for at the time, but obviously it was something that I needed because my friends perhaps intuitively recognized that it was a topic that I would be interested in, or, like energetically, it
Yeah.
just kind of fell on my lap, which I'm really grateful for as well.
Love it.
Yeah, that was it. So I was hooked from then on. And then years later, I did a course again through another friend who was doing an astrology course. And she said, "Oh, I'm doing this astrology course. Would you be interested in joining? There's one space available,
Wow.
one space left." And I
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, okay, I'll give it a go and see what it's like." So I joined this astrology course, and I met lots of really incredible, interesting people. And I did this course for a couple of years, and then at the end of that, then again, that was like another step for me. Oh, I want to do this professionally. I want this to become part of my daily life.
Wow.
And and here I am.
Oh, that's amazing. And so you don't just live anywhere in the UK. You live in one of the most magical places in the whole world. And you reminded me that Glastonbury is, if I'm pronouncing that in my American way, correct me, but it's the heart chakra of the whole world.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, I live in Glastonbury. And as you quite rightly say, it's the heart chakra of the world. And
Oh,
it's this
magical.
incredible, magical, mystical place that, if I'm completely honest, sometimes I take for granted because I don't know, that's what we do sometimes.
It's
Uh,
human. It's human. But
it's,
I'm
yeah,
sure when you do snap out of, your daily habits, you were like, whoa, I live in like a Hogwartsian sort
yeah,
of locale, and it's a very unique experience. And interesting that I know, coming from Venezuela, a totally different climate, a totally
yeah.
different culture.
Mhm.
And then Glastonbury, I'm assuming, has its own culture within the, collective of the UK. So I
Yeah,
wonder, like, it sounds like it pulled you there.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I first came to the UK, I haven't always lived in Glastonbury. I lived in Liverpool in the north of England.
Okay.
And I met my then husband and I got pregnant, and we came here on a holiday, and it was just
Uh-huh.
like, oh my goodness, this is just amazing. It's so relaxed. There's so much spirituality around it. Everywhere
Yeah.
you look, there is something mystical and magical. And we thought, oh, why don't we move down to Glastonbury? It would be nicer to bring up a child in
Sure.
Glastonbury because it's so green, it's rural. Yeah, and so we came down 24 years ago.
Wow, that
Um,
is amazing,
yeah,
and I'm sure your son really thanks you for bringing him to such a magical place to just start his soul's journey.
yeah, there's that as well, that, for children to live here, it's such a different place to bring a child up.
Yeah,
And what's beautiful about Glastonbury as well, that it's very welcoming, it's so inclusive. It's a place where lots of people, come backwards and forwards. Some people stay, some people go. But there are people from like all walks of life. I know that it's the same everywhere else, but it just notices so much in Glastonbury because it's a small town.
yeah.
A few years ago, there was like a celebration of different religions and faiths and beliefs, and I'm probably I don't remember the exact figure, but there are about over 30 different religions and faiths in Glastonbury coexisting together.
Wow, that's so
Yeah,
spectacular, especially in this wild time and on planet Earth. That's really
yeah,
heartening to hear.
yeah, yeah. And I think you asked me, you know, how I incorporate magic into my life, and
Yes,
what's it
we were
like
talking.
to, yeah, what's it like to, um, live in a magical town. And I wasn't quite happy with the answer I gave you then, but
Okay,
but
love it. I
yeah,
love this topic, and
oh,
like, I just imagine in my imaginal mind like what living, just because it can be really tough to keep your magic alive in the world, depending on who's around you, and so to live in a place that seems like it really greases the wheels of magical living. I'm so curious
mhm.
to hear your answer.
um, yeah, and I think I mentioned about, shops and workshops and whatnot, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's still true. There are lots of lovely magical shops with crystals and um, you know, spirituality, and that's still true. But the fact that the town is just so um embedded in that culture of magic and beauty and celebration as well.
Oh,
Not only of the one religion that is like general for the whole country, which is Christianity, but there is a celebration of all religions, of lots of different people that come together and you know believe in different things, or it's just a beautiful way to coexist with
yeah.
people. And and you learn so much from people that are Zoroastrians, for example,
Yeah.
or I don't know, druids, or yes, everyone is welcome in Glastonbury, and I think that's magical in itself.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. So it sounds like
Mm.
everyone really, maybe whether it's just subconscious or intuitive or, like at the front of people's consciousness, but that everyone's collaborating and
Mhm.
contributing to a magical frequency must, just through the math of things, amplify
Mm.
everybody else's frequency to create. I'd love to visit one day.
That's
I'll absolutely put it on my bucket list.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Come over and then we can do this in
Yeah.
person.
Yes, a more fun podcast, and I'm sure in the dead heat of Texas summer, I'm going to be dreaming of places like the UK that aren't blasted by the sun. But that's its own sort of magical initiation. But
Mhm.
so that's so exciting, and so I know we'll get into talking about maybe some of your real stories of how you've used astrology in your own life to heal. And today's
Mhm.
topic is how you, as an astrologer, kind of conceive of astrology as a methodology and a tool for healing. And so, like, I guess just knowing that you're a Scorpio and the way your life journey has kind of like pulled, tugged, invited you, coming from Venezuela, moving to, UK in general, and then, the
Mhm.
confluence of events that led you to be in Glastonbury. It sounds like life really wanted you to be a magical person working
Mhm.
in magic. And, in magical life, I think there's just such a sense of like service to the whole and a connection with nature. And I think that's such a huge part of astrology is just learning to listen to nature through observing
Mhm.
its patterns and understanding that everything is an interconnected system.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so glad that life has offered you this opportunity along the way in so many parts, and that you said yes to it so that
Mhm.
you could grow into your gift of being a healer through your awareness of astrological knowledge.
Mhm.
So, like, just to kick off, what are your sort of like base level things you would tell someone about how they can use astrology for healing? I know it's a big topic and we'll kind of like break it down and go in manageable chunks, but lead us into your sort of your perspective on astrology, and then how it kind of leads someone to be able to pursue healing through, understanding it a bit more.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. So this topic is, excuse me, vast,
Yeah.
and we're only probably going to scratch the surface with this. But I wanted to say to start off with that, starting with a bit of a disclaimer because it's healing, that obviously this is my interpretation of, healing within astrology. And obviously I'm not saying that if there are any physical issues, you shouldn't go to
Not medical advice.
medical advice. Yeah, we're not giving
A
medical advice.
spiritual, just unpacking of alchemical musings,
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
You fall and hurt yourself, like definitely go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Don't use the natal chart for that. But
yeah. Yeah, so but what's interesting for me is that your natal chart is a reflection of the moment when you were born. So all those energies are contained in your natal chart, and all the transits and the aspects between the planets and whereabouts they are in your chart will give you some indication of possible challenges or things that we are working through, lessons, things that we will be excelling at. So it's just a combination of lots of different things. But the way I like to start seeing my chart for healing is through the elements, because the element, so the elements are the building blocks of everything. So that's kind of like the base work, elemental work for me.
Sure.
So seeing how the elements play out in your chart. For example, are you lacking in fire, or do you have an excess of earth or air? So are the elements balanced, or is there an imbalance there? So that's kind of the first thing that I like to look at. Because depending on what element we have imbalanced or imbalanced, then there is a lot that we can gain from, there's a lot of insights and understanding that we gain from that. So for example, my chart is mainly contained of air, which is logic, intellect. So even though my sun sign is in water, most of my chart is in placements are in either air or fire.
Okay.
And I have only one placement in earth. So my earth element is a little bit lacking in my chart. So it's having that awareness that when we're low in an element, how do we bring that up so that we can holistically look at your life, and how can you
make
yes, exactly. So are there any foods that, for example, I could be eating, or anyone could be eating, for example, if you're low in earth, that can bring that element of grounding, of that power of staying, starting something and keeping up with it. So that's for earth, for example. Air, which is the intellect. If there is too much intellect and not enough connection with the heart, then how do I balance those two things? So I think that is fascinating, only starting from that angle. Elemental work, and that feels so magical as well. I mean, the elements, that is just perhaps one of the main foundations of all magical work, aren't they?
Yeah. It's the beginning of connecting to nature and earth.
Mhm.
And it can be so tactile, like the feeling of when you get, I've taken more baths during Pisces season than I remember
Mhm.
in a minute, and then to like sit in front of a fire and feel that transformative power that can be
Mhm.
warming, but you also understand the destructive nature, so, and then the wind, so yeah, that's just such a beautiful start because astrology is so huge, but when
Mhm.
you start to break it down, you see how it really is all rooted in things that already innately make sense to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're part of the earth. So I,
Yeah.
I love I love that that's where you start with things. Um and so then as you kind of coax someone or like introduce someone to their natal chart who might not have a wellspring of knowledge about astrology, but they
Mhm.
want to understand themselves. How
Mhm.
would you kind of describe the natal chart as a tool to understand yourself? I like to think of the natal chart as like the beginning of your journey of becoming the archaeologist of your own psyche, helping,
Mhm.
as humans, we don't really get we always say there's no guidebook to life, but then, if you actually kind of take the time to learn a little bit about astrology,
Mhm.
in our culture, it might not, usher you into believing there is a guidebook for life, but I think astrology actually is this graceful tool from the universe to be like, actually, there kind of
There
is,
is.
and we want you, like, the universe wants to see you become everything that you can be. And so,
Mhm.
what did you just your general thoughts on the natal chart as a map for understanding your potential?
Yeah. So what I usually say is that I think your astrology chart is a tool or a medium for understanding uh, where you come from, the skills, abilities, and challenges that you face in this lifetime that you have to, um, learn from, and how you use those set of skills in order to improve your life and better yourself. So it's just, for me, astrology is a
Yeah.
tool for self-understanding, for healing, and also for growth and development. So if
Yeah.
somebody says like, well, so what is my natal chart? So it's kind of like your blueprint. It's probably the best way I could explain it. It's a blueprint. It's something that it's that moment in time when you incarnated in this lifetime, and it's all the beautiful qualities, but also all the challenging aspects that you need to learn from in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So in order to grow and
Yeah.
develop the human being and as a
Yeah.
magical human being.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And the as you dig into the layers of the chart, starting, once you understand the elemental piece and then
Mhm.
understanding like what do the planets do? And then how do you layer on the awareness of the aspects between the planetary placements and the zodiac signs they fall in and the houses? It can be a lot to dig into, but I
Yeah.
think the natal chart is a beautiful place to come back to for
Uh-huh.
repeated contemplation and giving yourself like, say you discover astrology when you're 30 or 40
Mhm.
or whatever, any age,
Uh-huh.
knowing that there's no rush to understand the whole thing because it is
Mhm.
like a walking contemplative exercise, and different pieces of it might speak more to you at
Mhm.
certain parts of your life than others. I don't think if I was 13 or 16, I would have had much to gain from reading my natal chart, because I hadn't gotten through enough life to just
Exactly.
understand this whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, but what do you think of the role of planets and just like
Mhm.
understanding? I think sometimes a lot of pain and trauma can come from just unconsciousness or not being aware of certain things or not knowing how to name things. I know
Yeah.
personally, as I went into my planetary placements, I started to be able to kind of like give myself this grace of understanding how multifaceted I am. And when I say I am, I mean everybody.
Uh-huh.
I think being able to kind of name the characters of your personality, and then when you see yourself as that chessboard, or astral clock,
Yeah.
and then getting deeper and deeper into it and understanding, oh, certain parts of my personality have different relationships to each other. And
Uh-huh.
while I can read about it and understand it at the base level in one sitting, it really kind of takes living with it for a while to
Uh-huh.
deepen into your alchemical unfoldment of like what that actually means. So tell
Yeah.
me your thoughts on, just your deepening awareness of the natal chart and how you've seen it used in healing.
In healing. Yeah, so you mentioned something really important there about the planets being, like the energies, which I totally agree with you. So planets in your chart represents energies. And, depending on where they are in your chart, which part of your chart they're in, then they will, represent something for you. And there will be a lesson for you there to live through and to work with. So if you imagine that, for example, if we make an analogy, which I hope it will be useful. So if you think about the natal chart as your theater, your stage, for example, and then you have the houses, which are the areas of life where that play takes place, planets, which are the energies, or the actors, the players. Okay. And then we have the signs, which are the ways on how those actors, the planets, will show up for you in your chart.
Sure. And sort of their archetypal lens, or like maybe their
Yeah.
costume. I
Yeah,
don't know. I'm just throwing this
yes,
out there. I'm
costumes.
like,
Yeah.
because I'm in England, I'm imagining some Shakespearean play,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah, so the signs are more like the costumes. But I think also you mentioned about trauma and how important it is to understand perhaps whereabouts in your chart, or what planets to look towards when it comes to trauma, or deep healing, etc. So it's important to know a little bit about the archetypes, because that just gives you an understanding of the myth of that planet,
sure.
and how that perhaps informs the energy of that planet. So I'm thinking about say Chiron, which is the archetype of the wounded healer, and that's one of the placements that I would look at in a natal chart, if we wanted to work with healing the Chiron wound. So to understand the wound, then we need to perhaps understand the basics, that Chiron was a healer himself, and he was wounded by and he, although he had like so many healing skills, and he was really wise and knew a lot about healing other people, he could never heal his own wound. But what he did was he used everything that he knew, all of his skills, all of his wisdom, to help others heal themselves. And in that way, he healed himself. So it's kind of like that acceptance and understanding that perhaps we will never be able to completely heal a wound. And because healing isn't linear anyway. I don't believe healing is linear. You go like up and down, and sometimes you think that you're healed, and then a situation or somebody comes up and it triggers you, and then you are back in to square one, etc.
Yeah, you're like, damn, I'm in this spiral and I'm going for another move.
Oh, not again. I thought that was over and done with.
Yeah. Oh, but always teaching you, like, you'll never stop having more to learn.
No, exactly. So understanding, the archetypes, it's kind of one of the first ways to, get to know your chart and how to work with that planet.
Yeah.
And, sometimes like if you only want to have a look at your chart, I don't know, to understand little bits and pieces, then kind of archetypal work can be quite overwhelming because there's a lot to learn. So I'm not suggesting that we all know about that, but in healing, I think it's important to kind of know a little bit about Chiron and how, that archetype informs our healing work.
Oh, yeah. And I think archetypes are such an amazing, I call them information technology. Like, I think they're I don't know from a factual standpoint what is a human technology, the first human technology, whether it was fire or stories. But I think
Hmm.
they, whatever date they were invented, I think they go so hand in hand because in the beginning of human existence, we probably all spend so much time around fire telling stories.
Hmm.
And so for me, archetypes are so amazing because when you start to digest and get awareness around either your personality or a situation you're going through in life, and then you can relate it to an archetype, which is
Hmm.
just a building block that helps make up myth and story. And myth and story being this information technology that can transmit concepts across eons. Whereas, what other thing, like, yes, you can go build a pyramid if you know how to do that, which if you've seen me swing a hammer, you know that's beyond my grasp. But, the story has brought concepts that are just true in the universe, universal concepts, like through time immemorial, before we ever knew how to read and write. And so I think what is amazing in the realm of healing with astrology is when you kind of start digging into it, whether
Hmm.
you are looking into where your Chiron is, or whether you're looking into particular aspects of yours after you've
Hmm.
understood the basics of your planetary placements, and then and then you see those stories. And it could be a Greek myth from thousands of years ago. It could be a
Hmm.
Chinese myth, a Mayan myth,
Mm,
anything from around the world. You start to see that you're not alone. Like, these are
exactly.
human problems, but
Hmm.
and what's so cool about archetypes is often they have the, just like nature has cycles and seasons that have an entire circle of completion, a beginning, a
Hmm.
middle, and end, and then it begins over again in some new spiralic way.
Yeah.
It kind of forms like a
Mm-hmm.
ladder for you to be like, oh, if I'm in the darkest place of this particular archetype, I can look to these stories as models for how
Hmm.
the heroes transcended their pain, to let you
Absolutely.
know, like, you're in the thick of it, just like every other human. You have a specific journey, like, you are super unique, but like, humanity is rooting for you because it's been eons long journey for us to go through these transcendent processes. So
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
glad that you kind of brought that up, of like how you can see things through the lens of archetypes.
definitely. And what you just mentioned is really important, and it's that is almost also the one of the basic principles of astrology, like this cyclical nature of planets and
Yeah,
archetypes. Like you start at the bottom, and then it's like a hero's journey, isn't it? So it
yeah,
goes full circle sometimes, but like we said, sometimes we think it goes full circle, but something else pops up and we're like, oh no, my god, I'm right again at the beginning, and then
yeah,
we start again.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, that cyclical nature is so important in astrology because it helps you recognize patterns, and also, like thinking in hindsight. So for
yeah,
example, like what I mentioned at the start of our chat, that I just realized that next year will be my Saturn return in the UK. So
yeah,
cyclically, so that's 30 years. So I'm thinking back to, or I will be thinking back to when I first came to the UK, what was going on there, and what sort of challenges did I have to um, go through, and
yeah,
how did I cope with those challenges? Would I do something now differently than what I did 28, 29 years ago? And
Fair.
so again, that in itself is healing, because
Yeah.
you are reflecting on something that happened, at the start of Saturn's cycle, and now it's come full circle again. So what themes, what topics is that going to bring again into my life? And what area of my chart is that going to be kind of playing out in?
Yeah.
So again, I think, when we talk about healing, sometimes we think, oh, I have to do something specific, or I have to go to, I have to go through therapy, which of course, it's great. I think therapy is absolutely fantastic. But sometimes we kind of overlook the fact that we do things that are already healing, and we don't really realize that we're doing it. It's like
Yeah.
that reflection, that hindsight, like, oh, this is happening in my life again. So how do I deal with it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that I think that is magical and healing in itself.
Yeah, because I think maybe it's just, I don't know, Western culture making us think that everything has to be a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but again, like bringing the unconscious into the conscious, like bringing the shadow into the light,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that is enough, plenty of work to do,
Yeah.
to transform something, and then letting, like you mentioned, the nonlinear aspect of things work, because if you're living a magical life, then you probably have some beginning awareness, or some form of awareness of alchemy being a nonlinear just situation, and that contemplation is plenty of technique enough to
Mm-hmm.
let like the magic work in the background, and how you understand something in this season
Mm-hmm.
certainly may not be the way you understand it 2 or 3 seasons later.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because 3 seasons later, you will have developed as a human, as
Yeah.
an emotional, spiritual, mental human being, and that you would have gone through experiences that you know enrich the way you view life, the way that you experience your reality. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we were always bringing something extra to the table, whether we are noticing it or not.
Yeah.
And yeah, subconsciously. And the trick is to bring it into reality, to anchor it into reality. And I
Yeah.
think that's where the your natal chart comes in. So for example, it's like helping with the understanding that if I'm feeling a certain way, if I'm feeling anxious about something, or, I'm going through a period of self-doubt, or, anything, it could be anything.
Yeah.
So why am I feeling this way? And where is that being reflected in my chart? And are there any planets involved in that, in that configuration, why I'm feeling this way?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I think the role of the astrologer becomes so important, because you act as an interpreter of that beautiful tool that is your blueprint, that map that is your
Yeah.
birth chart. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, because yeah,
Mm.
in the birth chart, there's so many levels to it, not just in the fact that it's composed of planets,
Mhm.
zodiacs, houses, and aspects, but also
Mhm.
that each one of those has its own archetypal associations, and every archetype has its frequency range and its multivalent
Mhm.
umbrella of all the stories and myths that can fit in it, and
Mhm.
energies. And
Yeah.
so if you're feeling any particular way about whatever's going on in your life, you could be really just in the ruts of a shadow feeling, or you could be like flying really high. But when you kind of start to look at the world magically and through the lens of nature, which I think is through the same thing as saying through the lens of astrology, realizing like that everything is always changing and everything that is always moving. And so that I think it takes a bit of maturity to really let that sink in, to know that like you'll never stay on top forever, but you'll never stay on the bottom forever.
No.
And there's natural reasons that that is the way it should be. And so it just kind of helps ground you that you are in like the river of life, and so is everybody else. So if you're feeling, in the downtrodden, kind of like if you're in a season of winter, like knowing like don't rush it, like stay in it. Look for the archetypes that help you understand the framework of like the purpose of winter. And know that spring will come, and that through that contemplation, like you'll get out of it what you're meant to get out of it, even if you don't understand it until a season or two forward in time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were like talking about this on Instagram as well, about the how I like to live astrology seasonally,
Yeah.
and how I like to use astrology for practical things. So that's another really important aspect of astrology for me, to live through the chart as if it were, or as they are seasons. So for example, soon we're going back to the beginning of the astrological year with Aries, and Aries that's when we plant seeds, that's when we start things. Aries is a cardinal sign, which means that that's when we're more likely to have all these creative ideas that we want to put into practice, and we have the energy for it because the sun is starting to shine again. Aries is a fire sign, and fire is about creativity, transformation, purification. So if we go with that energy, then we are working with nature. And then the experiencing your natal chart becomes a journey, as opposed to thinking, oh right, okay, so I've got Mars in Aries, what does that mean for me? So Mars in Aries is about this, or it's about that. So it just, instead of us having like a bunch of keywords, we have a journey. And then we work through the seasons, which is beautiful. I find it.
It's so alchemical. And I think that, again, the theme of nature and like sometimes I like to think of astrology as the farmer's almanac for like the journey of human life. In that, don't like, because we're in Pisces season right now and we're kind of like wrapping up winter, and people may feel, because our society can kind of like give you it kind of like instills in you a little bit of self-criticalness, I feel, of our go 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 culture. And to kind of counteract that, I think astrology is so helpful to be like, if you weren't full of energy in the dead of winter, that's super normal. Like but seeds wouldn't survive if they sprouted like in January. Most of them. And so to really realize like there is a rhyme and a reason for all things, because it goes in the seasonal pattern, and there's a developmental process that has to go. You can't skip from one to the other. You would be missing parts of your maturation journey if you did that. And so just kind of like using it as a tool to remember like, aha, like I am meant to feel this way, even if it is in the lower realm of things, but that every season gives you the opportunity to keep going to gain the next level of awareness.
Exactly.
So,
I like that. That is so true. I mean, following the seasonal patterns, I think it's really important, because that is the pattern in nature, isn't it? And if we go against it, we're going to find it harder to
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And
to
you may find a lesson in that, but like then
yeah.
when you do you come back around to that, and that's the cool thing about astrology is it's because it's cyclical, it's always giving
Mhm.
you a new chance to try again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Do you have any thoughts on how to use aspects? Like in the natal chart, you have all of these aspects, and I think that can
Mhm.
be kind of like the next level of deep dive that people go to
Mhm.
after they've kind of taken a minute to get to know their characters and the zodiac costumes they're wearing. But
Mhm.
like I know when I started to contemplate my aspects, I was like, I didn't get them all at once, and I
Mhm.
think, again, that's the kinda thing to just be like, "You don't need to." You will be in a season where one aspect or a couple are what you need to contemplate in one season, and then others will come for you when you're ready for that part of your initiation.
Yeah,
But what are your
definitely.
thoughts on aspects and how to use them for healing?
Yeah, so there are like, if you like, two layers to aspects. So if you just look at your aspects on your natal chart, so it's like how the planets interact with each other just on your natal chart. So
Mhm.
then, that gives you an understanding of, for example, why you have a difficult relationship. And I don't mean you personally, I mean like in general, why you may
Sure.
have a difficult relationship with your mother, for example, or
Mhm.
why you find it hard to keep your energy levels up. And then you would look at how the planets are interacting with one another. For example, let's say that you have, excuse me, um, a square between Mars and Neptune, for example.
Mhm.
So understanding that squares are about challenges.
Yeah.
Square is a 90-degree angle, so it's a hard, what we call the hard aspect, and that's going to bring you some challenges to your life. So let's say, for example, you have Mars square Neptune, so you are going to probably experience issues with low energy. Okay, how you express your Mars whilst having a square to Neptune. So Neptune is all about, you want to be relaxed and you want to dream and,
Yeah.
you want to have baths and all that. So how we kind of use those two planets in a way that Neptune is not like over, you know, um, it's not sumping my Mars energy.
Yeah. You're not drowning your drive for action.
Yes, exactly. And that's a brilliant word because Neptune is, water, deep water. So how do I not allow that Neptunian fog to
Yeah.
drown all my energy and all my ambition? So that's
Yeah.
one layer. And then the other layer is when we apply those aspects, so which are the transits, so what's happening
Sure.
in the
Yeah,
sky.
glad you bring that up. And just for people who don't know,
Hmm.
basically aspects in your natal chart were
Hmm.
just transits that were going on in the
Yeah.
world when you were born. And I think
Hmm.
it's good to note for people that there are global transits that
Hmm.
affect the collective, and
Yeah.
then there are personal natal transits. And I kind of like
Hmm.
to call them like there's the collective astrological weather or cosmic weather, and then there's your
Hmm.
personal weather with the
Yeah,
personal natal transits. So
I
feel
love
free
that.
to like pop in whatever your perspectives on those are and keep that explanation going.
Yeah, I love that. No, you're absolutely right. Yes, we do have like collective transits, and we also call them generational. For example, they are like your Neptune, Pluto, um, um, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus. So they are the
Yeah.
collective planets. So, for example, we were chatting about Pluto in Libra. So
Yeah.
everybody of that
I think we
generation.
both, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
everyone of that generation will have to go through the same lessons because, that affected a collective.
Yeah.
And the personal transits then are like represented by the personal planets, which are Mercury, Mars, Venus, the Sun, Moon. So whatever is going on in the sky is then applied to your chart. So how those transits affect the planets in your birth chart.
Yeah.
And so we kind of superimpose a chart of what's going on right now to your natal chart and see again how those transits are interacting with your own natal placements. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like they're kind of like always shining geometrical flashlights or spotlights into your natal chart. Like I know generationally, like I'm 41, so I just went through like a whole litany of personal natal transits that I like to call, they're like very generational initiations that everybody goes through. So I went through 3 Pluto square Pluto transits, and I have Pluto conjunct Saturn, so I went through concurrent Pluto square Pluto, Pluto square Saturn, and then there was Neptune square Neptune layered on top of that, and a couple others that were just like, it's a lot of layers to the onion, but
it is.
I was so it made it so much more productive. It made it make a lot more sense to see what was going on in my life, and then the way I could bring that perspective of consciousness to the events of life, to be like, not like life is trying to just throw jacks in the road because it wants to see you fall on your face. It wants to make sure that you use this season to gain all of the lessons that you need to gain for your highest development, is kind of how I went about it. Even though, sometimes I wasn't as graceful as others for that 2-year period that's still kind of going on. So tell me about your, have you used transits like that in your specific life to like really be like, okay, things are getting a little hairy here. How do I bring consciousness to this so that I get through it as well as I can?
Yeah, and transits that I can remember recently has been Pluto going through my moon, through my natal moon. So that has brought so much healing and transformation to the way I relate to my own children, to the way that I look after my personal needs, to the way that I relate to my mother, because the moon is about mothering, it's about children, and connecting to ancestors, or to your roots, where you come from. So Pluto going through my moon has been, that transit finished a little while ago, but
Pluto transits can be long. I don't know.
They're so long. But I think that is the beauty of a Pluto transit. It's really, really hard, and you think, oh my gosh, how can things, do things get better ever with this transit? How can it get any worse? But when you come out the other end after you've experienced all this, you have to break down all your beliefs, all your belief systems, all your the way your patterns, your attitudes, and once that all breaks down, and sometimes it feels like a nervous breakdown. Then you start to rebuild from the ashes, because Pluto is the phoenix, it's birth, it's rebirth, transformation. And then it is such a rich soil to, work with. And you can just, work with that, and then reflect on, what was working, what, and what isn't, and how do I change that? How do I incorporate those new elements, those lessons that I have learned into my life, so that I don't keep repeating those patterns?
Yeah, and it's like you probably wouldn't have signed up to get on the Pluto train if you were being asked. But
No.
you don't get asked, you just get taken.
Yeah.
But then when you go through the entire cycle of the journey, at the end, you're like, oh man, yes,
You have.
part of me would have taken the easy road, which that wasn't what happened. But
Mhm.
again, and that's what I think is so magical about letting alchemy happen in your life and
Mm.
stepping up and participating in it, because then
Yeah.
you kind of see that you are working with nature and nature is working for you to teach you the lessons you
Mhm.
need to gain awareness, because you certainly wouldn't be in the same awareness if you had chosen that, place of comfort and not
Exactly.
endeavored to go on the journey.
Yeah, yeah. Pluto transits that, you have to step out of your comfort zone. And
Yeah.
I didn't understand what was happening. I really didn't. All I experienced was heartache and, like difficult, emotions and, you know, things that were hard to process. But,
Yeah.
I promise you, if you keep going forward and you move through it, um, you just get to understand why those things were happening,
Yeah.
why those situations were developing around you.
Yeah.
I always say that hindsight is a great thing in astrology. Sometimes, you're not clear about what is going on,
Yeah.
or why you're going through those emotions or those lessons, and then in hindsight you think, oh gosh, yeah, I can see it now. So it's a bit like a puzzle, it starts to
Yeah.
fall in place.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. And, as Scorpios, we definitely understand like the journey of the phoenix and like being in our little scorpion dark dens and being like,
Mhm.
it's nice in here, it's dark. I'll keep my claws
Yeah.
out, and then getting to the level of the eagle and being like, okay, yeah,
Mhm.
like now that I can see from higher up, that makes sense. And then maybe we
Mhm.
get taken out by some like gust of wind and like fall to the ground and everything burns to the ground and you're like,
Yeah.
"What? Why is this happening?" And then you realize it's because you needed to compost yourself so you could
Uh-huh.
rebuild a structure that really matches,
Yeah.
like your greatest potential. And you wouldn't have been
Mhm.
able to gain that without going through the whole cycle. But it
No.
can be very grueling emotionally and
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And not all transits are like so hard to
Yeah, for
experience.
them,
I
it's
mean,
not all hard.
yeah, it's not all hard. Some transits are like, you can still see straight through, like, oh yeah, I can see why this is happening. And
Yeah.
I think, a good story for me right now is I've got, with Saturn in Pisces. Pisces is my, area of my chart where, relates to sacred service and
Okay.
how I serve other people and what I do for a job. So Pisces being there is about spirituality. Saturn going through that house is like helping me structure how I serve others spiritually. So,
Oh,
that just feels like, this is great. I think I'm on the right track. And
yeah.
again, that's the beauty of astrology, that you start doing things and then you think, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And then you look at your chart and, these are the planets in that chart and this is what's happening. And these are the keywords for that house. And so when I actually put it all together, it's like, gosh, yeah, that's just so beautiful, structuring
Yeah.
how I serve others spiritually. Just love it.
Yeah, so it's like it's not like this is where Saturn comes and, makes you get all your, it's like, "Hey, you're on the wrong track, get all your shit together, you need structure." It's like, no, this is the purpose you're meant for, and now
Mhm.
we're giving you the push to actually create the structures of service in your own so that you can be of service in your life because that
Mhm.
will be most satisfying and gratifying to you. So that's really fun when you've kind of paid your dues and the initiations that
Mhm.
are on the rougher side, and you
Yeah.
use astrology to kind of hold your hand, but not to take away your
Mhm.
power, but almost to
Mhm.
remind you that you do have the power within you to get
Yeah.
through it. And
Exactly.
understanding, and the more you follow it and the more seasons you go through, you realize there is a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't know the reason, to let it come to you, then I think things, you get that sort of sustenance to know that you truly are a creator in pairing with the universe, and that
Mm-hmm.
you grow your intuition through kind of like sometimes bouncing into walls like when your lights weren't on, and then you start to sharpen it, and by the middle of your life you kind of like, all right, I've got a little bit more GPS going on here. The sky's the limit, literally, of what you
Mm-hmm.
can do with that awareness.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
also it's really satisfying to know that we're not victims of
Yeah.
what's happening. We're, like you said, we're co-creating our,
Yeah.
future, our lives.
Yeah.
And yeah, so astrology is taking us by the hand. Um, and so this is why, when Mercury is retrograde and, there's like this, oh my gosh, Mercury is retrograde.
Yeah.
It's going to be horrible. It's going to be like really hard.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe that. I don't like that hype around Mercury
Yeah.
retrograde. I like to use Mercury retrograde periods to rest, reflect,
Yeah. Yeah.
restructure, rethink. So all those words that,
Right.
so yeah, so like let's not go a million mile an hour because,
Yeah.
that's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be chilling.
Yeah, you need to check
And
the map, for
yeah,
maybe the young folks don't remember trying to drive long distances with an actual physical map, but I remember those
yeah.
days.
Hmm.
And so you can't just keep going full force at all times. You got to pull off to the side of the road and be like, am I still on track? Is there a
Yeah,
way I need to rejigger this?
yeah.
Because that's just the way you got to do it. Just like gardening,
Exactly.
sometimes you have to like prune a couple things and like see, am I
Mhm.
putting the right inputs into, the plant life cycle for its highest, flowering potential. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think people have gotten a lot of sort of like clickbaity type situations off like, oh, car crashes, logistical problems, when really it's just a part of the natural cycle that is meant for your grace, meant to give you
Uh-huh.
time to reflect,
Uh-huh.
so you don't end up somewhere that's not good for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
like the fact that we are using so many um comparisons to do with nature
Yeah.
and all those similes that the the farmer's almanac, because I
Yeah.
think that's what astrology is, that it's part of nature, planets, the energies, um
Yeah.
that's all nature, isn't it? It's all
Yeah.
part of us. So yeah.
Yeah. And, I've heard, I would have to really look this up to be totally clear, but the
Mhm.
way they compile the farmer's almanac is apparently a very secret process. But
Mhm.
I've heard that they do use astrology as part of the way they put things together. How? I don't know, but it kind of just tickles me because as someone who's been an avid gardener my whole life,
Mhm.
really when I started to get into plants, like plants that aren't just, perennials that just keep or like never die and keep going, like plants that have like a beginning, middle, and an end, it
Mhm.
really brought it home to me that every part has a purpose, and you might really resonate more with certain parts than another, in certain, as you gain awareness of growing, but
Mhm.
realizing like it's never going to stay the same. And so
No.
understanding that in your own life to really helps you be grounded when things are really going well, and to understand like enjoy this time, you deserve it, like the universe wants you to be in this conscious experience, but
Mhm.
don't be Icarus and fly too close to the sun because you'll get
Mhm.
your wings melted, and you'll start this lesson all over again. And on the
Mhm.
same token, but on the flip side, when things are not, dark, to remember like you've got things to learn here, but you're not meant to stay here forever. And as the cycles move, you will feel the energy shift. And I think once you've gone through a couple good energy shifts where you remember feeling like, is this ever gonna end? And like feeling kind of I've been in my own victimhood periods.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
then when the energy moved, I realized I needed to go through that bit of victimhood feeling, but that if I had stayed there, I wouldn't have completed the process. And so that
Exactly.
wouldn't have been a good thing.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so
I
yeah,
agree. I think, we tend to be too hard on ourselves and think, oh, yeah, I'm in my victimhood. And, we all have periods of time when we feel low or when we doubt ourselves.
Mhm.
And that's all normal. And I think, what you're saying, that's so true that we're not always at the bottom, we're not always at the top.
Yeah,
It's just a process that we go through.
yeah,
And in today's society, we're just taught to be so hard on ourselves because I should be doing this, I should by now have, I don't know, as a six-figure salary, yearly
yeah.
salary. I should be owning this, and it's just not like that. I mean, if we're not meant to be at that stage in life energetically or otherwise, then we won't be.
Right. And if you resonate with reincarnation, there were probably
Mhm.
times when you were, like the king or the emperor, and times when you were the street sweeper and the toilet
Exactly.
cleaner. And there is something of value for the experience of human consciousness for us all. If we're really looking at things in the meta time perspective, like really blowing things out, the flagship regal personality, like you need the humbling, you need to see from the highs and see from the lows.
Yeah.
And that so does everybody else. And so to
Mhm.
never kind of look at anybody who's above or below you in a current position of life, like it's all transitory.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And so it's the same with the energies in your chart. We're all meant to experience each sign's energy as the year progresses. For
Yeah.
example, again going into the start of the astrological year with Aries, we don't have to, but that's how I like to experience my astrology. When Aries season starts, I've got a few ideas of things that I would like to set in motion. So I'm going to plant those seeds, metaphorical
Yeah.
seeds. I might do like physical seeds as well.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, and see how that grows. And then next year around this time, like Pisces season, then I'll be thinking, oh, did that work? Or how can I change it now? Because we were saying as well, not every Aries season is going to be the same. They're
Right.
all going to be different because, we'll have different planets in different areas of the sky. So it's always really different. And
Yeah, nothing is ever the same. It
no.
might be a different spectrum of the frequency of that archetype, but not exactly
Mhm.
in the same place. And I
Yeah.
know you're a journaler, so when you
Yeah.
are getting ready to make the intentions of the seeds you're planting, and you move through the spring and the summer, and you watch them grow, and you kind of change how you manage them over the course of time,
Mhm.
then when you get to next Pisces season, you can look back and be like, okay, wow, I am really juicing the alchemy of how it
Mhm.
went
Yeah.
with like compassion and grace and like giving
Uh-huh.
yourself sort of props for showing up to be a gardener in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then in a year's time, then your projects and your aims or goals will be different.
Yeah.
But because you have tended to your seeds, month after month, then it means that you can incorporate something else into your life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, which I
Oh, I
think,
love it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so much to talk about on this topic, and
Hmm.
because astrology can be so helpful in just bringing some conscious awareness to like why things are the way they are in your personal life and giving you a map for how you want to move with that.
Hmm.
So you have a, in line with the as above, so below maxim. Do you have any thoughts on how astrology can bring healing to the collective? And I know we're not at that point in human history where like all of humanity understands astrology, and so we all can look at
Uh,
the life cycle of human consciousness. But
mhm.
for people in their day-to-day lives now, as we are all experiencing this paradigm where, we can look at our phones and get smatterings or go into deep dives of what's going on all over the world. I feel like we can all experience like we're imbibing the collective trauma a bit depending on where you're looking in the news. And
Yeah.
so do you
Mm.
oh, here it goes. Okay. So do you feel like astrology can give you some sort of way to conceptualize like where humanity is in our conscious evolution, knowing that,
Mhm.
just like we look at the zodiac wheel as a cycle for ourselves, knowing that humanity as a collective is going through something like that also.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that to look at the at collective healing, then we could perhaps like look at Pluto in Aquarius right now, because that is, that's where the transformation and the healing and the rebirth is going to happen for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
And again, it's a collective energy, so perhaps we're not going to experience it individually so much, but I think that is the beauty of it, and I hope that answers your question, that
Yeah.
that would be a way that how we can bring astrology and healing to the collective by using the energy of Pluto
Yeah.
to transform the way that we use the internet, that we use technology. So, I mean, I'm not sure what the answer is, but because the internet is so powerful, technology is so powerful. So instead of perhaps concentrating on, I don't know, fake news or, you know, um, you know, I don't know. Yeah, fake. Let's just say fake news. Then let's use the power of spreading news and information in a way that serves us as a collective
Yeah.
and not to bring us down.
Right.
Um, and I
Yeah,
think that
no,
is
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And I think that is the beauty of using the, maybe also with Uranus being in Taurus, which is going to change to Gemini at some point as well soon.
Mhm.
But let's use again the earth and her resources in a different way. Okay, let's not take and
Yeah.
not give back to the planet that sustains our life, that that feeds us, that that nurtures us. So that is another way in which we can collectively bring healing to our society, to our world. um Neptune in Pisces, I think that's brought a big change in how we view spirituality. I mean, I
Cool.
think in the last few years since Neptune has been in Pisces, I think people have become more aware of, that we are spiritual beings and how we can use that for our betterment, individual
Yeah.
um, development, but also for the collective.
Yeah.
So
And how
I
they
think,
all end up working together at the end
yeah,
of the day.
yeah,
And they're
exactly. So
yeah.
I think again, we're doing it. It's just like maybe having that awareness and that understanding that that maybe those energies are there for us to use, wisely and to learn from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that humanity has to go through many iterations and changes, like we would in our own lives as we learn new things and go through different initiatory challenges. And so maybe in terms of healing, as people watch the world happen and we might feel like we don't have like we can't have our foot on the gas pedal of the collective,
Mhm.
but
Mm.
using global transits and kind of contemplating and marinating what position the planets are for us generationally or at the global
Mhm.
cosmic weather
Mhm.
level lets us continue to use our individual awareness, like, okay, well, just like if things are difficult in my life, I know that it's not meant to last forever. Like, when things look very dark in the human collective, like that may be a birth portal that the human collective is going through so it can gain new awareness as it moves forward.
Yeah.
And maybe that can help people who are experiencing, you know, some sort of grief or trauma as they watch the world and its collective evolution gain
Exactly.
some perspective that, there is a seasonal progression for all different forms of consciousness, and we're just in the river of change.
Yeah, yeah, and how we as individuals can support those changes and how we can help our communities and
Yeah.
um, how we get together with like-minded people and instead of I don't know, spreading misinformation, then
Right.
how do we use the power that we have of getting together as, a powerful collective? How do we use that power to help others, to help our communities, to help our countries, to, you
Yeah.
know, um, yeah, use
Because like
our.
Like you were saying, living in Glastonbury, just the fact that, and you using that as sort of like a community example that you could then
Mhm,
blow up to bigger levels of community. You mentioned that it's just is easier to be magical in a place where everyone is contributing to that.
mhm,
And so you
mhm,
build this like frequency of magic that then things that wouldn't be possible in a place where everyone is kind of not letting
mhm.
that happen become possible because you're all in contribution to that frequency. So,
Exactly. Yeah, I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah.
now
So,
we have tools. We didn't used to have the tools to all,
mhm,
reach out across the world. And it makes me think, we're coming into this in the Pluto, Pluto and moving into an Aquarius, and then the age of Aquarius becoming
mhm,
more and more, becoming on stronger as we move into that collective,
mhm,
having the ability to communicate globally, thinking again back to nature that
mhm.
mycelium, being, the internet underground, it kind of makes me wonder, does mycelium ever spread fake news? I don't know. I hope not. I hope it knows better.
Yeah.
But that this is all like something that's meant to be and like predict hardcore future things. I just use it to kind of be like, all right, this is the potential energy of this season. What's the
Yeah.
best I can do with it?
Absolutely. I cannot agree with you more. And that this is something I tell my clients that I've had in the past. I say, in my readings, I don't do hardcore predictions. I
Yeah.
just don't do
No
that.
lottery tickets.
Yeah, no lottery tickets. I won't tell you when you're meeting the one.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so, I just like to use the chart as an opportunity to use that very individual, that very special energy that you have been given or
yeah,
that you came to this world with to, improve your life, to
yeah,
make your life magical, to, um, grow spiritually, to grow emotionally, mentally, in any way that you want. But yes, predictions, no, no. So I'm glad you say
yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, yeah, so to kind of wrap it up, it just sounds like, astrology, no farmer is born a good farmer. You got to go through seasons and watch the environment, and
Mhm,
you're going to get knocked around. Like that's and it's like being a sailor. They say like there never was a good sailor who only sailed smooth seas. You want to
mhm.
sail with someone who's like almost capsized a couple times and use
Yeah,
their internal knowledge to right their ship.
yeah,
So I love that, and just getting your perspective on how to use astrology for healing, how to make sense of things, how to know that, nature wants to work with you. You just kind of need to move with it for a while until you can learn how to work with it back.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. And
yeah,
like you said, we don't always have like, fair weather. We don't always have the right conditions.
yeah,
And I think, if we always had like, beautiful sun shining, our lives were absolutely rosy, then it might be nice, but we're missing out on all that juicy, like shadowy.
You wouldn't be
uh,
an alchemist.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. We wouldn't be who we are, like really well-rounded
Yeah.
beings.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, we wouldn't have all those, really enriching experiences that makes us who we are. We need to go
Yeah.
through, again, it's cycles. We need to go through good times, bad times, challenging times, in order to appreciate who we are and our experience on this
Absolutely.
planet.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom that you've gained through 20 years of learning to work with astrology. And I'm so
Oh,
happy
thank
to
you,
hear,
Kath.
that Saturn in Pisces is ushering you into deeper levels of your service and helping you build a structure and, helping you come out of your Scorpio shell that I also shared with you. And
Yeah.
so it's just been awesome to connect with you like this. And I want
Thank
to wrap up. Well, first of all, before I ask you my last question, do you have any sort of closing words on the topic of using astrology for healing?
I think everybody should have some experience of their natal chart. So please, I urge you to generate a chart. You can generate a natal chart free online and start like looking at the planets, whereabouts they are. Have a look at those aspects. If you're not too sure, then there's lots of information on, my Instagram or on Kathryn's app, on your app.
Yeah.
There's
Our book
so
program
much.
to help us all.
Yeah,
So good stuff.
there's so much information there that can help you start to familiarize yourself with your blueprint. That is your birthright to get to experience that. And yeah, I just would like you to, pick up your chart and have a look at it and
Oh,
just
that's great advice. Good advice. So my last question, since this podcast is called Future
Mhm.
Dreamers, really
Okay.
the idea is that just like they say, what's the first step of getting to the moon? You look at the
Mhm.
moon and you say, wouldn't it be cool to get there? And everything that happens in between you having that, like, oh, that'd be awesome if somehow we got there, and then humans
Mhm.
actually getting there. So that's part of the process.
Yeah,
So do you
exactly.
have any, just, you don't have to tell us the full story, but
Mhm.
what are some features in Carolina's dream world for the future of humanity? And it doesn't have to be tied to logic. It doesn't have to be tied to what's possible right now. But in
Mhm.
some future time that could be tomorrow or 1,000 years from now, what are some things you would love to see humanity experience through our growth?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would love to see us all to connect with each other on a deeper level. I would like us to support each other and celebrate our, successes and our skills and our abilities. I think there is a lot of separation
Yeah.
in the world and in society right now. And, with everything that's going on, worldwide, wars and um you know um racism and everything. I think my dream is that people understand and accept that we are all different, but we're all part of the same collective. We all have something truly amazing to share. So I would like to see us all being equal. Yeah, that's my dream.
Oh, I love that. And I think astrology, in terms of that collective healing, like if everyone were given the opportunity to understand their own uniqueness and how, we really are all just truly, truly a geometrical snowflake in the world, then you can kind of get that compassion and curiosity to be like, it's not just me, everyone is like this. And so then when you blow that up to the collective level, and hopefully that is something that comes in the future with the age of Aquarius coming to show us that, using the power of technology to empower the collective, if we take it to the gift level rather than the shadow, should bring us more ability to understand ourselves on the individual level and giving us a greater window to have reverence for the deep uniqueness of every culture across the world. So I love that and totally agree with you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, this was an
Yeah.
amazing conversation. We
Oh,
spent
yeah,
more
same.
than an hour, same like our Instagram convo. We had so much
Yeah.
to talk about because astrology is such a huge topic, and if you are like the astrologers I know, that inside our brains is a whole universe of things that we mull over and think about. So it was amazing and such an honor to get to pick your brain about astrology and how people can use it to heal. And just, I'm super excited to keep following your journey.
Oh, thank you, Kathryn.
Yeah, and I'll
Yeah.
put in the show notes how people can find you and connect with you both on Instagram and for readings. But anything you want to leave us with about just how to find you, the works you're doing, and how your service is here for all.
Well, you can find me on Instagram at the moment on astrology.cas. There is a little button there where it says message. So if you want to pick my brain, ask for how I work with astrology, specifically on a one-to-one basis, just message me, DM me, and I'll do my best to get back to you. I've got lots of things, lots of plans that I'm going to put in motion when the Aries season starts. So I'm going to keep that under wraps for now.
Okay.
But I'm just planning on starting to work with your chart as a, medicine wheel. So yeah.
Cool.
So yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's another thing to be excited about for spring. And thank you for kind of like sharing with us. If you want to know how this is going to go, follow Carolina at astrology.as, and that's in the show notes. So thank you so much,
Kathryn.
Carolina. This was an awesome conversation, and I can't wait to share it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I feel like we have so many things to talk about. We're at the same wavelength, and I love your ideas. I love your app. I mean, I use it every day. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And I really am sure this will not be our last conversation. So
I hope not.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Carolina.
Okay, thank
Everyone
you.
on the Instagrams.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.